Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Successful Mentalist podcast, the podcast designed to teach you the tips, the tricks, the methods, and the strategies to improving your performances and growing your entertainment business. I'm Aidan O'Sullivan, and I'm joined by my very good friend and co-host, Ashley Green.
Hello, as always, I'm going to ask again, how are you doing this week?
This week is amazing for many reasons, but one of the many reasons is that today's interview is incredible. Who are we interviewing, Ashley?
I was going to say Las Vegas legend for a second, but to be honest, anywhere in the world, he's a legend. He's traveled around with his own tour. He's traveled around with the Illusionist. He's had television appearances, multiple various different things. If you don't know him, you live under a rock. It's none other than Dan Sperry.
Honestly, this is so good. So many useful insights from Dan. I mean, Dan was one of the as I was getting into magic, he was one of the first performers that I actually saw and came across. So he's a huge inspiration, and I've been following him for years. Well, not literally, but following his work for years. And it was just an absolute honor to be able to sit and pick his brains.
I know. I personally got so much gold from the chat we had. So, if anyone's got a notepad and pen, it's worth getting that ready now. I mean, I remember when I was about 15 years old and I was sat in front of the telly at Christmas time and we was watching him there. And now we've had the pleasure of actually interviewing the guy.
Wait, Ashley, can you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
I think that must be Dan Sperry. It's none other than the shock illusionist himself, Mr. Dan Sperry. Hey Dan, how are you?
I'm all right, thanks. Thanks for having me on and on. Well, you said this is the first one that you're doing. I don't know what order you're going to release these in, but if this is going to be the first one, then thanks for having me on and letting me pop your cherry with this. So your digit cherry.
Yeah,
it's certainly been an interesting one with tech on Aidan's end. So, but no, I'm so looking forward to it. We've got so much that we wanted to talk about because, like Aidan was saying, our viewers were, had some certain questions and that about stage stuff, like we said, and we thought obviously you're the best person to answer those questions, really.
Well, we'll see. I make no promises, but we'll see.
So one of the things which comes up quite a lot is obviously character and being unique with a lot of people, because there's a lot of magicians out there which are basically copycats, and especially in mentalism, when you look at Darren Brown, that they're all trying to copy him. So have you got any advice that you can give people in regards to character, unique, and stuff from your own perspective as well, what you try and work on?
Well, really, I mean, I think number one, first and foremost, you have to be yourself, because when I started out, I was performing in a way that I thought it was the way I had to perform because of almost like unwritten rules. Like what is most common, I thought was what was expected of performers and magicians or whatever, as far as look and style and such. So I would change how I looked on stage and acted different on stage to who I was actually off stage. And even up to a few years ago, I was consciously doing this, even just in terms of how I speak and stuff, because because of probably just like in UK and anywhere in any country, there's accents from different regions, And I'm from a region up north that usually gets mocked, like in the movie Fargo, like, oh yeah, you betcha, and stuff like that. Yeah. So I really, up until probably 5 years ago or so, even was changing how I spoke, because I thought that would make me sound like a goofball or whatever, and would conflict with the image, for lack of a better way of putting it. And then that was kind of the last thing that I held on to, and just kind of said, fuck it, I'm just gonna let it go. I'm just gonna let it all go and whatever. You know what I mean? So it's really just about being yourself. And I think you mentioned, like, especially in mentalism, guys copying like Darren Brown, he's in a way sort of become like the Blaine or Copperfield for mentalists, where I think he's obviously inspiring people that are probably just starting out. So a direct copy, obviously, that's never a good thing. A source of inspiration and influence, I think, is okay to a certain level when you're starting out. Even it's not even something to do with age. I think if you're just getting into magic at 20 years old, let's say, and seeing Darren Brown, or maybe you've seen Dynamo or whatever, since I'm assuming most of the people that listen are going to be from the UK, so I'll try and use those references as best I can to make it relatable. But I think that's fine in the beginning to have influence by him. But one of the most important goals I think that people should have, on top of just trying to educate themselves on the art, is just sort of these unwritten rules of the art as well. And one of them would be, like I was saying, like, you can take inspiration, but that would be, I think, one of the first things on the goal sheet that you should try to get over. Rudy Kobe has a great thing in his lecture notes where he talks about, like, just take old bits like linking rings or color changing handkerchief or silken egg or whatever, and just do those and find your voice doing it, and it'll come natural if it's just how would you perform that? And in the beginning, of course, it's going to be probably pretty standard. And as long as you accept that and realize that and just get out there and keep performing it, it will find its way, really, by listening to your audience. Because also maybe you shouldn't be doing silken egg, maybe as long as, if you keep listening to your audience, maybe, whether they actually tell you that trick was awful, or whatever, or just by listening to the response, that will tell you either, okay, it needs to be tweaked some more, or you just got to scrap it, and you got to learn to kill your babies is a phrase that I remember learning at in art. I went to art university, and that's something that they taught us in creating, these things, especially for, clients or whatever. You design something and create something that you think they want and like, but they might come back and just say, oh, that's not what I want. That's awful. And you can't hold on to it and stick to it. So even you could put all the time in the world into coins and cylinder, and if it's just not clicking, you got to let it go. You got to kill your babies. Play with it at home in front of the TV in your living room or your front room, as you guys call it, or whatever. But and just leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's valid argument. Do you ever find that not only do people are looking into your work and perhaps from a character perspective, and find that maybe the material just follows, they end up copying your material? Have you had any situations where there's been people like ripping off your act, if you like?
Oh yeah, all the time. And the worst part is it's when people that should know better, because I mean, I don't know how it is over there, but at least in the States, there's several, I guess we would say, known repeat offenders that continue to do this. I mean, I've even had, and I can't speak for other people in the industry, and I'm sure this happened to them, but I've even had people right down to stealing quotes and just changing them just a little bit, but it's wow. Like, okay, like obviously I can put one quote here, like I have a legit quote from Broadway.com, let's say, and this person over here has an almost exact duplicate quote and claiming it's from People magazine. And first of all, it's like, dude, you're doing the college market. You're not in People magazine, you loser. Like, who are you kidding? You're only kidding yourself, and that's doing harm. That's going to do more harm to you, But I've had even that. I've had even graphics lifted off of my website of, because stuff that I've designed, because I design all my own stuff. So it's like, dude, you can't tell me that that's a stock graphic because I made that. Like, I know where I got that from. So I've even had it down to that, but and all the way up to full routines, lines that like aren't stock lines, because I wrote them and I know where they came from, and I know that I created them and came upon them through my experiences and my work and just sort of the market that I've been in. and knowing that, dude, you're not even close to this market. And again, it comes down to that, example I used about the magazine quote. We're not talking like, an amazing magician, quote unquote. It's like specific stuff to where the probability of two people reporting and saying that and those words and using those specific, references, the likelihood of them both saying the same is so small. It's so small. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's like, can you win the lottery twice in one lifetime? Yeah, you could, but technically no, and you're really doing more harm, to yourself in the end. I mean, I've toured and worked with guys, even like on when I used to work in that Triangle show, that there were guys who would lift lines from other magicians and even other guys in the same show that I was in with them. And they only hear the reaction without really fully understanding why those lines work in that moment for that performer. But they just hear the audience's reaction without even really understanding why the line works, why the joke is there. And they just throw it in their act, and it might still get a laugh, but it doesn't work for them the same way it works for the other guy, and yes, to a degree, some of them would be, I guess, quote unquote stock. And there's certainly, I don't think there's anything wrong with that if you can use them appropriately, but you don't want, and I'm just using lines as an example because I feel it's an easy thing to reference in this example, but it's not like, it's not like it's something that the audience is going to necessarily remember. Like, are they going to remember that, 9 months, 2 years down the road when they see another magic show and the guy says oh, hold out your hand. No, the clean hand. Oh, that was the clean hand. Are they going to remember that? Probably not. So, so in that case, those stock lines in the right situation can work. But why would you even want to do that? Why not? If you're spending so much time trying to work on material for performing the magic, why not spend just as much time on your costume, your music choices, your script, if you have one, or the lines that you want to use? I even years ago, I set a goal to that nothing that I say, any joke, any whatever, you cannot hear it anywhere else. Anything that I say will only came from me and my experiences, and I'm going to strive to have it. So I'm not going to fall back on the easy, and sometimes it's inadvertent. Sometimes it just happens. It comes out of your mouth because maybe you said these jokes back when you were first starting out a lot, and every once in a while it'll slip. But I really, I think I've gone a couple of years without getting any smudges on my record. But I think all of that is important because all of that makes up the pie. All of that makes up everything that is going to elevate you to another level. Buying the latest download or the latest illusion or whatever isn't going to, it's not a race to who can get to that stuff first and get it out there, or at least in my opinion, it shouldn't be. It should be more about picking, will this work for me in a real situation, in the real grand scheme of things? Will this work for me, and how can I make it work for me? And to keep building together. Hope that makes sense. I think I got off on a bit of a tangent, but that happens.
No, it's perfect. And to be honest, that's probably why you've been so successful, because you're being unique and you're being different, and it's so easy for people obviously to just copy others, but being unique is obviously the harder thing to do. But it's obviously paid off in what you're doing, because you've literally gone around the world with shows, which is incredible.
Well, yeah, but yes, and thank you. But at the same time, I know I've lost a lot of gigs because of it, and also because of it, I've also been victim to dirty rumors and stuff just because of the way I look. Like I've been accused of everything from shooting heroin in my dressing room to and not that there's anything wrong with this, well, maybe heroin, yes, but I'm just saying that came off wrong. Let me finish. Everything from like shooting heroin to trolling gay bars, to whatever, all of this stuff, to being an animal abuser, to be in all the, all this, and none of it's true. It's just because even people within the industry who you think are smart enough to understand that usually when we behave on stage, sometimes it's a character, but sometimes it's also an extension of who we really are off stage. Like for me, performing on stage, getting rid of a character, I didn't want to be a character. I didn't want to be a theme act. I didn't want to be any of that. I just wanted to be me, because me being on stage is also a bit of a therapy for me. I'm releasing pent up things and channeling that into my performances to, let me release that, otherwise I don't even, maybe I would be on heroin, who knows, but like that, it's something, being in entertainment, you'd think most people would have the smarts to stop and think for a second and, maybe give a person the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, anyway, so where I was going was, it's both sides of the coin, too. In many ways, it has helped me, but in several ways as well. Like I said, I know I've lost gigs, fallen victim to rumors and bullshit and this and that. So it's, if it's something like that I'm doing that might not be necessarily as commercial in the grand scheme of things, you can't complain. You can't sit and go like, well, nobody's gonna hire me, meh. Well, dude, you signed up for it. Look at yourself, or look at what you're doing, or whatever. But there's very few that are kind of within the same, I guess, look genre, and actually are real people within that world. Like you guys probably know D. Christopher. Talking about mentalism and stuff. Yeah. D, that's not a character. Like that's D offstage too. That's how he lives. This is how I live. So it's easier for us to be on stage like that, so we know what it's like. So we've probably all been to the grocery store and heard people say stuff. I remember being on an airplane and a little girl thought I was a girl. It's just stuff that happens.
Yeah, I mean, would you coming from that perspective, would you argue that it's kind of better to find that sort of niche, if you like? Because I know that obviously you've got a huge following over in America, obviously where you're based at the minute, but you come over to Germany as well, and you came over to the UK for a London show a few years ago, which was insane, by the way.
Oh yeah, you were there at the O2 Shepherd's Bush.
Yeah. It was honestly fantastic. It was.
Thanks, man.
It was such a standout show compared to so many others, and I'm still to this day thinking about whether that's because you took this, that you were yourself, and you took this the whole sort of genre, if you like. That's the route you are, and there's not a lot else there, or whether it was just like because you're a standout performer. I'm still in two minds, but both apply. Both definitely apply.
I don't know. I mean, it was like a big quote unquote illusion show, and I don't know. Because I remember thinking about it when we were there, thinking like, well, wait a minute, the UK doesn't really have an illusionist, a full big stage performer like that they can claim as their own. You guys have Darren Brown, you have Dynamo, you had, gosh, shit. I'm only remembering Debbie McGee. Who the hell was that old guy? Who?
Paul Daniels.
Paul Daniels. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, you guys, Paul Daniels, so obviously a different thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But correct me if I'm wrong, you really haven't had your Lance. You haven't really had your Copperfield or your Siegfried and Roy or anything like that, at least within the past 20 years, So I didn't know if maybe because of that, having a big show, in that style, not even in that style, but just even in that genre of a big show, a big illusion show there, it might have just also been because it's not common over in the UK, Could have been. I don't know. Who knows?
That's brilliant. It was something you mentioned a moment ago about inspiration and finding inspiration. I wanted to ask, Has there been like something which you viewed in like performance or magic, which has kind of like really inspired you to change the route you're going, or like inspired you to try new things?
In magic, not really. No, I'm trying to think, but no. And if it was not, I mean, at least not directly. You know, like Copperfield was the first real big magician that I saw, and really the first magician I ever remember seeing. Like I know I've seen magicians at school growing up, or probably at a birthday party or a library or something. I know I'd seen them, you know, or at least a clown doing magic tricks too. I know I had to have, but I really didn't see like a theatrical magic experience show until I saw Copperfield, and that's what really opened my eyes. You know, that's what made. I didn't know that magic could be like that. You know, because I hadn't seen it. I hadn't even seen any of his TV specials. You know, at that time. So seeing that, and especially seeing it live, you know, full, very theatrical, you know, with lights and the music and the fog and all of it, you know, and a narrative in a lot of what he was doing too. There's a story kind of behind it, very dramatic. So did that inspire me to do this in, like you were asking, in a certain way? Maybe inadvertently, because Copperfield was an inspiration, you know. So maybe that was sort of a subconscious inspiration to see, like, all right, so Copperfield took, you know, he even took things that Doug Henning did first, you know, elevator. Doug did it first. Copperfield just did it his way. And with all respect to Doug Henning, but I think Copperfield did it better, you know, and because he just took it in a different direction and then elevated it to that theatrical, you know, standpoint. You know, really, I mean, there's nothing, I don't think there is anything more iconic, at least in magic, that I've seen in a public show than Copperfield's elevator opening. Still to this day, I've like you know, I mean, you can have, I mean, I've never seen Dynamo live, but I saw Blaine live. You know, let's say for example, they just walk out, they just raw dog it, they just kind of walk out on stage to a thunderous applause in response. You know, when I saw Blaine here, there were people before the show started chanting, you know, David Blaine, like as if, you know, like Rufio, you know, or whatever. But like, and that was impressive. But I'm telling you, I've seen it several times live. I've never seen an audience, and I don't want to hear the bullshit that Copperfield pumps, you know, fake applause into the theater and puts plants in the theater. Like, yeah, we get it. He does it, but you know what? So do a lot of other people. But this is real. Like hearing, because I saw it when that silhouette starts coming down, it's like an oh shit moment. Like, you know, that silhouette, you know who it is, and it's like, here he comes. It's like he's getting beamed back down from the spaceship or something, you know. And nobody's been able to duplicate that, and nobody ever will. Like that elevator, Copperfield took it. I've never seen anything like that. Still haven't, and again, probably never will, because he was such an iconic celebrity, and in a lot of ways still is. But just that silhouette, man, you can't top it, man. One of the best openings I've ever seen of a show, you know.
I mean, you say that the opening to the show that you did in London, that being your quite simply appearance.
Yeah, it was the Strange Magic tour that I
yeah, which great title as well.
Thanks.
How much time do you sort of spend when you're creating new stuff, and or maybe looking at new material, if you like? How much time do you sort of spend thinking about the effects, or the actual presentation, or the actual script? Or
I mean, I don't know, man. That honestly, that varies. There's really not one straight answer. You know, sometimes it happens really fast. Sometimes like everything just falls into place, it clicks, and there you go. You know, other times, and most of the time, it starts almost very basic and low budget or something, for lack of a better term. You know, just to make sure everything in the routine works together, you know, and to make sure that everything sort of jives together. And then, all right, now we got that figured out. Now let's start amplifying it. Let's start ramping it up. You know what I mean? And usually that comes in like the production rehearsals and stuff like that. That's when, you know, the lighting and any other elements that we want to add, you know, comes into play. But for the most part, I've always been, you know, I'm not really a notebook guy. I've kind of gotten into like the notebook thing that I'm a little bit older now, but it's all still conscious. Like I don't draw the pictures in a notebook. I don't write it out in the notebook. I see it more up here, you know, in my head. I know how I want it to be like, I mean, just a shit example. But if you guys want to see it, you can download it or buy the DVD of my Strange Magic Tour at dansperrystore.com. And, but like the opening, like you said, I always wanted almost from day one, I never wanted a main curtain. I wanted the stage to be raw as people come in. So it's just empty with just the one platform center, you know? And so then it, you know, and with the countdown and everything, that's what I wanted, was just a bare, you know, or I mean, there were you know, scene pieces and the backdrop and the lights and everything going on stage for the pre-show as people are walking in, and then the countdown to the actual show, and then me appearing. But I didn't want a curtain. I just knew, like in my head, I saw it in my head. This is how I wanted it to look, and it wasn't even because I hadn't seen anybody really do that. It was more just like, this is, I wanted it to almost be like, I don't want to say naked, but like open, just open. Like, look, there's nothing behind the curtain, because there is no fucking curtain, you know, like we're just doing this, you know, we're, you know, coming out of the gate and going hot and heavy, you know.
Now, I remember when you came to Blackpool, obviously when you performed at Blackpool, there wasn't that curtain in front of you, but
right,
still what you done, it was just like so pumped. And me and Aidan were stood at the top of like the balcony because it was like packed out in there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There was that, yeah.
Yeah, I was just mental, and you can just tell like all the production value that goes into it. And what we've been saying throughout this podcast is like the tricks don't matter throughout each episode. It's all about the other stuff, and like the production value was just like incredible. Like even just taking it to the stage where you were at Blackpool, it's still just like we were literally stood at the back, just like, it was brilliant.
Oh well, thanks. I appreciate that. That's cool.
So you got any tips on how people can get into learning better, like things to do with all the production value stuff, like where they can go for like lighting or even just learning materials in regards to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it comes down to too, I guess, like what's anybody's market. You know, you got to look at your market and who you're playing to, and then look at, you know, yes, to a certain degree, I'll agree with you. The tricks don't necessarily matter, but the show has to be good. The tricks still have to be good. At the end of the day, you're a magician or a mentalist or, you know, whatever, but your product at the core has to be good. You know, there's, you guys have probably seen it too, there's a lot of magicians and performers that hide behind production value. And it doesn't matter how fancy of a production it is, but if the audience doesn't care, then it's all for nothing. So once you have confidence, and I'm not saying like arrogance, in knowing that your show's good or that you know your product's good, but not arrogance, but the confidence in knowing like, okay, it's in a good place for now, because an artist's work is never finished, but at least it's in a good place right now. Now I can take a bit and start looking outside that circle, like the, you know, the rings of Saturn, like start looking out for, you know, further and further. All right. Now maybe you add more music or something. You want to add music, so you want to get like a cue command or something like that, where, you know, so you, or an audio ape or whatever, so you can have these moments of adding just that little bit extra, you know, a good sound system, a good microphone, that sort of stuff. Then maybe a backdrop that you can travel with, you know. Roll up banners are fine, but are you at a trade show or are you at a show, you know? So having, you know, a backdrop of some kind, even if it's just blue curtain, something to make it, you know, next level. You know, what could be the next level of whatever it is you're doing within that market, I guess. You know, like I used to do a lot of kid shows. I didn't care if I was, you know, doing a kid show in a trailer park home, I still brought, a backdrop. I still, brought my sound system, even though I didn't need it. It was overkill. Just turn the volume down, but bookending the backdrop with the speakers on the stands, it just, keep bringing it up next level, little bit by bit by bit.
Yeah, I mean, what's something interesting about that I saw from your perspective is that you, for the most part, in your Strange Magic tour, you actually took the opportunity to have the remote like on your person to control your own music cues, if I'm right in thinking.
Yeah, I was doing all the basically all the lighting. No, sorry, all the audio and video and live camera. I control throughout the show, and then I have a guy front of house that's doing all the real lights. At least in that aspect. In other shows, I'm controlling everything, including the lights via the remote. But in that case, like in London, we had my buddy Jake Rober at the front of house at the board, take care of all that.
Is there a reason that you try and keep or have kept it on yourself rather than giving it to somebody else? Surely that just seems like an extra step or an extra thing to think about whilst you're.
I'm used to it. It's really not for me, and because there's I don't remember much honestly about the UK show. It's pretty straightforward, But there's moments where that come and happen unexpectedly, interacting with the audience, whether in the middle of a bit or something like that. And I like to be able to, pause and have those, like when you watch a movie or a TV show or whatever. And there's those moments where I don't feel that I have a fourth wall ever between me and the audience. But if there was one, that would be when the fourth wall is broken, where I can actually pause and look at the audience or pause and address someone specifically about something. And then, we have our little whatever, boom, and carry on, and I like to be able to capitalize on that stuff. And that's why, at least for the audio and things like that, I like to be able to have that ability to play off of that instead of, if there's, some music playing in the background, or if the person on stage is being a bit of a pain in the ass, and throughout the interaction, I can, almost have the record go, and then address it as need be,
It's quite handy, I guess, because I was watching some of your videos the other day, and I came across the one with the paper bags and the lady who was just like really weird, but the way
she was like on drugs. Yeah,
it's bizarre, but like you just handled it so well. And I guess having the ability to control all your stuff just makes it easier. So you guys up doing usually who would do it don't have to panic, I guess.
Yeah.
What is it like going on tour and traveling around and all of that?
I love it. I love it. And I prefer it. Like I'm addicted to the road. I like going and seeing new cities, meeting interesting, weird locals, and stuff like that. I like that. I don't really go to the touristy parts, like when I've been on tour, I always ask like the local crew guys, like, hey, where's the spot where all the local people go? Like, where's the weirdest, coolest, like, bar where the floor is going to be sticky. They're going to serve me in a plastic cup. They're going to mark my hand with a Sharpie when I get in there. There might be a door guy that looks like he's out on prison work release or something. Like, that's like, send me to the dirtiest, weirdest, ickiest, whatever place. Like, oh, there's a monument over there. A meteor landed here 200 years ago, and there's a hole in the ground now, and they've turned it into a park or whatever. Machu Picchu. Nah, forget it. I don't care. I'm gonna go over here and hang out with these people. That's what I like.
Yeah, I mean, I ask because it's one of those situations. At the minute, I think that's the direction that I want to take myself. And I know me and Ashley, we've actually written a show together that we're hoping to take on the road. So with that, how did you go about starting in terms of the tour stuff? Did you work with anybody in particular, or was it a case that you just booked a load of shows and hope for the best?
Yeah, I don't know. That's I've worked with a lot of people that have, help, as far as like, different bookers or promoters and agents and stuff like that. But I don't really remember how it came about. You know, it just, I mean, it started in a small scale. You know, like clubs, and not, when I say clubs, I mean like nightclubs. You know,
Yeah.
bars and nightclubs, and then music venues, and then, you know, it just sort of, it grew over years and years and years. Um, Things that I've done on TV have helped. You know, that's helped uh, earlier on, especially helped sort of legitimize my reach, perhaps, for lack of a better way of phrasing it. But yeah, I don't. There's not really one way of saying it. I mean, when I started out too, I was a guest on other tours, you know, as well. So I was watching and observing the behind the scenes stuff, you know, as well. Like I would, instead of sleeping on the bus till, you know, when my time was to go into the theater, I would watch the load in, you know, and see how that worked, and asking questions, you know, and I watched and helped with the load outs, you know, instead of just packing my stuff and getting back on the bus. I'd stay and watch. You know, when I was starting out, I would sit and watch them and see how the crew works together. How do you pack a truck? You know, I took advantage of every opportunity like that to try and soak up as much as I could, much knowledge. You know, and then later when I started branching out into doing my own thing, I was able to look back at that, and I think that helped me. I mean, of course, still learning and still made mistakes. We'll never stop making mistakes, but I was able to avoid some mistakes that I could have potentially made because I was observing and like I said, just trying to soak up that knowledge from before.
Have you got any highlights from obviously going around from obviously the early days to now? Is there like a defining moment that really stands out for you?
No, nothing really. I mean, I hate to say that because it's probably, you know, because like people ask like, oh my God, Broadway with the Illusionist, how was that? And it was like, I mean, I don't know. It was never really my goal to play Broadway, so I don't know, doesn't bother me. I don't care either way, you know, like stuff like that. Like, so I don't, not to sound like ungrateful or whatever, because it's not about being ungrateful. It's just I wasn't that's not a thing that I cared to do or had on a bucket list or something, you know. And so I mean, I don't know, it's a thing that happened, you know. So I'm trying to think of anything else, you know. Okay, probably one of the coolest things was when I was starting to get momentum, you know, years ago, and getting asked to come to Las Vegas and fill in for Joseph Gabriel in the World's Greatest Magic Show. So he was the bird act, and they had some other bird acts, and it just wasn't working out. You know, they were trying to find what's a good bird act as a fill-in for Joseph when he would take time off, or if he rotated into the illusion spot or something. And so Joseph was the guy that I saw that made me want to do birds and learn about, you know, dove acts and things like that as an inspiration. And so so being able to perform in Las Vegas on a real Las Vegas stage. I'm not talking about, you know, the guys that say I performed in Las Vegas because I did a trick for the TSA guy, or the, you know, the person in the lobby of the hotel, or even, you know, I did a trade show in Vegas. Really? So did you really perform in Vegas? You know, like I get a little protective of how people sometimes just loosey goosey use these, you know, phrases. But to be on a real Las Vegas stage in a real show 7 nights a week, doing my bird act, guarding the throne for Joseph, was probably one of the coolest things ever. When I was 17, getting asked by Dale Hyman, who was president of the AMA at the time, I had done a convention that I was asked to come and perform at, and he was the stage manager of it. And when my act was over, he said, you know, hey, would you ever want to work at the Magic Castle? And I said, well, I can't, you know, I'm 17. But someday. And he was like, no, none of that matters. I'm the president. You know, you want to come and do a week? And I was like, yep. sure, you know, like that was like a holy shit, you know, kind of moment, you know, big deal for me. So those are like two that I can think of, you know, that were cool in moments, you know, I guess you could say. We were on tour. We were down in the South here. There was this is my go a certain way that again, this is how rumors get started. But I got to see Werner von Braun's house, who is a guy that I've studied. There was a whole thing called well, whatever. Project Paperclip. It's where the U.S. It's like basically U.S. and Russia at the end of World War II shared Nazis, and it's totally fucked up. But we did it, you know. And he was one that we got. He created the V2 rocket. He was responsible for getting us to the moon, supposedly, you know, and other stuff. And he had a lot of crazy intel and things that to this day we're still using that he's created. And so I got to see his house. You know, some other random family works there, but I had one of the local runners, you know, I said, I got to go to Walmart. I need tape, you know, but really I was like, yo, let's go to Werner von Braun's house. Here's the address. You know, I just want to see it, you know, like they're cool moments like that have been fun. But yeah, nothing really like super huge, I guess. I don't want to, this isn't arrogance. I'm just, it takes a lot. I don't really get starstruck, and it kind of just takes a lot for me to get excited about anything. So, you know, doesn't mean I'm not grateful for everything that I've had. I'm very grateful and appreciative for all that I've had happen, and that's been offered and etc. But takes a lot to get me excited. You know, usually too busy watching hockey or something in my dressing room.
I suppose that works. You mentioned that obviously you're looking at these things, and they weren't the big goals, they weren't the big dreams or the big aims for you. Like what is the big dream or the big goal for you? Is there something that you're working towards, or is it just still like doing what you're doing?
No, still just to be able to perform and keep a roof over my head and gas in the tank and you know, a comfortable level of living is so I can go to Disneyland or Disney World whenever I want. That's basically all I need. So yeah, that's it. I've kind of accepted the fact that I probably won't ever get a TV special or series, and that's fine. I don't need it, you know, as long as I can keep working and people like what I'm doing and we can have a good time doing it. That's plenty for me.
We'll start the Dan Sperry TV show petition somewhere.
Okay.
And
can't wait to see what network picks that up.
Yeah. Is there anything while you're here? I mean, unless there's anything that you want to sort of plug or share what you're up to at the minute, where can people find you? And if there's
I mean, really just dansperry.com. You know, just go to my website. That portal's out to all the, you know, social media stuff and the store. That's really still, you know, the main thing. I wouldn't say go to my Facebook because there's too much icky stuff. I don't even want people to go through the trouble of having to log on to their Facebook to get to mine because there's too much icky stuff on there. So just go to the website, watch some videos, you know, eat some popcorn, have a good time. That's about it, I guess. I
wanted to ask one more thing, a
Sure.
little interesting one. Obviously, you mentioned mentalism. I want to ask if you had to, because there's a lot of bad mentalism. In fact, the other day, myself and Aidan recorded something called the bad mentalism, the boring mentalism lecture. I forgot the name of the thing. Because there's so many boring mentalists out there at the moment, which it's like a drain for us who enjoy it as well. Like watching it, it's like, oh, if you had to change one thing in mentalism, just one thing, what would it be? Just to make it more interesting.
Man, what would it be? I think. I think. See, here's what I've struggled with about mentalism. I've done mentalism and I do mentalism, but I'm not a mentalist, you know. So like I like how I especially like Philip Escoffi. I was able to work with him in that Triangle show for several years. We got to know each other really well, and you know, his approach is similar to Darren's style, but I like that Philip is able to, and I think so. Let me say this is what I like about a whole mentalism show, so it doesn't sound like I'm just shitting on mentalists all the time. That he's able to keep it very intellectual and engaging, and almost have a message, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. He has a really great ability to put these life lessons or these messages that into his performance, these like metaphors and Easter eggs, that I think it's really great and very smart. I think he's I think he's right up there with Darren Brown. I think he's obviously, Phil is doing other stuff too that he's talented at, but I think a lot of any mentalist should watch what Phil has done and what he's doing, because some of the stuff I've seen, it's amazing. It's great. What I don't like about mentalism, though, is when mentalists try to make it almost too much comedy. They make it more. I've seen mentalists try to be funny, and they're not, or like try to be, and this could be said about magic as well, but I think the thing that separates a magician performing and utilizing some mentalism and being able to work in comedy into it, because it's not a mentalist. I was actually talking with a buddy of mine sort of about this last night, because we know a friend that's a mentalist, and he doesn't really do much comedy. Of course, he'll have some laughs and stuff in it, but trying to perpetually, because I've seen this in several mentalists that are, especially they're getting more prominent now too, perpetually trying, almost like they need the audience to like them so bad because they're insecure that they're a mentalist. Like mentalism is such a weird offshoot of magic that even you can say it's mentalism, it's entertainment. Like people in the audience are still going to say like, no, I know that, but seriously, I know you have this power. Like I don't have that happy. People aren't going to watch me do the bird act and then be like, listen, I really need to talk to you. My grandmother and baby, like they're not going to fucking talk to me about that. But like I've seen it with mentalists and stuff, and I'm not saying they should tap into that and take advantage of of people. Like don't get Randy on your ass, but like these guys, like Keith Berry, I think has found a really good balance, because I saw Keith Berry's show when he was here in Vegas, and it was a good balance. It was the dramatic impact of the mentalism. He had it perfect. He was able to be funny and engaging, but he wasn't overdoing it. It wasn't like he needed the attention. He needs the love, because like I was saying, it almost seems like so many mentalists are so insecure, and they probably are insecure in real life, but also even more insecure about being a mentalist, or something. It just seems like they're insecure, and they need to be liked, so they need to be cracking jokes and blah, 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 and here's my prediction, and now go ahead and open it. And I've seen him kill that moment. Like the person might be nervous and having trouble opening the envelope, and then they try to say something funny or whatever, and they just fuck it all up because they can't just shut the fuck up and let the impact happen, or something. Like they fuck themselves by doing that. Sorry if you're gonna have to bleep this shit out, but it's your podcast, not mine, so I don't give a fuck. But like they interrupt. It's like they can't just shut up and let that happen and be comfortable in the silence or in those dramatic moments, or that sort of thing. I went off on another tangent. I don't know. I've had a lot of coffee. Didn't sleep much last night. Whatever. Yeah, I think you get what I'm saying.
No, definitely. It's really interesting to hear like a magician's perspective on mentalism, because like as you said earlier, there is a divide. There's a huge divide. Like mentalists see magicians in one way, magicians see mentalists in another, potentially more negative way, and it's just something we're trying to fix in a long-winded approach. But
sure, no, I get it. Yeah, but no, there you go.
Now we're getting there. Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you so much for obviously coming on. It genuinely means a lot. Like we have a without saying too much, obviously we've got a few things planned with the Successful Mentalist, and being able to interview you is just absolutely incredible. So it means a lot.
Sure,
me and
yeah.
Aidan
Thanks,
talked
thanks
about
for
it a
having
while.
me. Hopefully, I didn't offend too many. But
No, it's great. We're leaving it all in. I'm the editor, so I just leave
all right,
it.
there you go.
Sorted. Yeah.
Not my
no, that's
monkey, not
brilliant.
my circus.